This is going to be a tutorial for people on Windows who want to install ALPS using the Windows Subsystem for Linux, or WSL for short. You're going to have to install a few more things before you can pip install ALPS, or pip install PyALPS, provided that you are new to WSL and you don't already have those things installed. This tutorial assumes that you already have WSL installed. There's a separate video on the ALPS YouTube channel for how to install WSL. And keep in mind that these are errors that I encountered, so if you're not seeing the same errors, this tutorial may or may not apply to you. And I'm going to try to reproduce those errors and go through the process with you during this tutorial, because I think that will be helpful. So with that being said, let's get started. Now, I couldn't reproduce all the errors, but I did write them all down. So first, let's initiate WSL. I have a folder called ALPS that I'm going to be working with. And so the first thing, if you try to pip install PyALPS and you're seeing the following error, a command pip not found error, or something along these lines, that means you don't have pip installed and you're going to have to install it. The command to do that is sudo apt install python3-pip. So go ahead and run that. I'm not going to because I already have it installed, but then that's going to install pip. And then next, you're going to want to install venv so you can make virtual environments. You pretty much have to do this. I say pretty much because if you, let's say you don't make a virtual environment and you were to try to pip install PyALPS now, this is what I run into. This right here. So I have a choice. I can either install it system-wide by apt installing it, or I can create a virtual environment and then install it that way. And you create a virtual environment with this command here, but in order to create one, you first have to install venv. And for Python 3.12 or later, the recommended option is the virtual environment. So you technically don't have to, but you should. So I'll go ahead and paste this into here and replace path to venv with ALPS underscore venv, and I'll explain that in a second. But if I were to run this, I'm not able to create the virtual environment because I need to install venv, as I said. By running this command, you may have to use sudo, so we'll go ahead and do that. Nice, I'll go ahead and clear this, and now paste this in again. And essentially, for this path to venv, if I put in a file name, what it's going to do is, in the current directory, it's going to create a new folder and then put the virtual environment in there. The virtual environment is going to consist of some files. So there's going to be a new folder called ALPS underscore venv with some files in it. So now I'll show that off. So this was in the other tutorial, but one thing I'll say is that you want to keep this virtual environment in the folder on its own. So the only thing in this ALPS venv folder should be these files. You don't want to mix anything else in there. And so now everything should be the same as the other tutorial. And so we can activate the virtual environment. And then the name's going to appear here. And I personally like to call my virtual environments something where I can look at the name and immediately tell exactly which virtual environment is active. Because a lot of people on Stack Exchange, I was reading, they just call all their virtual environments venv. And if all of your virtual environments are venv and you have multiple, then just by looking at this, if they all say venv, you're not going to know which one you're running. And then, just like in the tutorial, and also too, you may have to install matplotlib. Anything you haven't installed to WSL, you're going to have to install. basically. So I apologize for the cuts and the clears, but these downloads take really long while I'm screen recording. So all I'm doing is cutting the recording and restarting the download, but I want to show that I am actually running the commands. So and because the browser that I use for this is not my default browser, I opt to just use these links. Just take this, paste this in there like so. And then I already have a folder and a notebook. I recommend putting your notebook in its own folder like this because these simulations generate a lot of files. And so just to check that we can import PyAlps and Matplotlib without any issues. And also if there are issues, we can also pip install PyAlps and pip install Matplotlib here. I was playing around with that. But yeah, so we are good. And so hopefully this helps. I will mention one last thing. If you've already gotten it to work by this point, you can ignore this. But if not, there are a couple other commands that I ran while I was troubleshooting. So I'm not sure if, so I know that I ran these commands and then I got it to work, but I'm not sure if it worked because of these commands. I don't think it did, but I'll just mention them here really quickly. This just updates the package list, so if it's already up to date, you don't need this, but also I ran this as well. So I don't think you need this. I don't think the errors I ran into were due to me not having this, but I did run this and then it worked, so just in case. But like I said, if you've already gotten it to work, you could just ignore this.